Yu-Gi-Oh! Can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, with many different elements to the game, from the competitive nature of the higher tournaments to the casual gameplay that you could experience at your local store, or even just collecting the cards if you're more of a collector than a player, and with many different formats from Edison to GOAT to the advanced format. Everyone can play this game differently, but this is our journey from going from a casual collector into a much more competitive player. So please follow along and watch us go from casual to competitive, all the way to hopefully topping our first ever regionals. So as you just seen from the intro, this is the brand new series of going from casual to competitive. And what a week to start it. This is a winner map week. It's the sneak peek for Rota Rage of the Abyss set has just dropped. Well, it's not officially dropped yet, but it's the sneak peek weekend with the official release next week. As for all the Azamina cards, they are cards we are looking to pick up, and I have pre-ordered everything apart from one copy of the Continuous Spell. The reason why I'm only on two copies of the Continuous Spell is because looking at the Chimera Azamina lists, or even the White Forest Azamina lists, 3 seems a bit excessive, and since that's the expensive card to get a playset when the reality is you're most probably only going to be running 2, doesn't make sense. But if I ever need a third, I can just order a third. But with that being said, we have picked up everything we need to pick up in advance, so we're not going to be struggling to play catch up like we normally do. So it's actually a really nice feeling for once to actually be ahead when it comes to the card pool that we're looking to play. Now, like I say, it is the sneak peek. I've been deck testing on and off all week, and White Forest, as good as it is, just doesn't seem to be able to pull as many punches as I would want them to. It seems a lot more interruptible and a lot more outable than Chimera. So as such, we're going back to our basics on this channel, and we are taking Chimera to the sneak peek event in a pure illusion build, because I don't own Fainsmith, so this is pure illusion Chimera. So let's get ready, let's have some breakfast, and then let's head down to Geek Retreat and see how we do today. And I will see you guys at Geek. Okay, so round 1 we are up against Aaron on Fire King Snake Eyes. He did win the dice roll and chose to go first, and he goes ahead and normal summons that little fire chicken Phonics. So this might be a bit of a shotgun, but we go ahead and we drop the Imperm, just purely and simply because I don't really understand the Fire King cards that well, but I know that the field spell and the thing that protects the field spell can be a bit of a pain to deal with, so I thought let's try and stop that from happening, and he's not normal summoning Snake Eye Ash. That did stop his turn, so now it's us, and we go ahead and we normal summon the Mirror Sword. Now, we could have normal summoned the Gazelle instead, but because we do have a couple of extenders in hand, I thought we'd be safe. If we eat the Ash, we eat the Ash. We can keep going based on the other cards we have in hand. But here now we have to decide if we want to be fusion locked or not, and we decide not to, and we go ahead and we spec that Gazelle. Now, Gazelle activates to either add the level 5 Fiend or we add Chimera Fusion, and he goes ahead and drops the Ghost Ogre. Now, Ghost Ogre wasn't one I was expecting, but it's okay. We was grabbing that Chimera Fusion either way, just because other than Super Poly, we can't fuse with anything at the moment. So we go ahead and we grab that Chimera Fusion. Here now, I'm weighing up using Pot of Prosperity, but he's got such a weak monster on the field. I don't want to half the amount of battle damage I do. So I discard the Pot of Prosperity over the Super Poly in order to spec the Nightmare Apprentice, which then triggers its effect. And obviously we always spec in defense mode, because if we do get stopped, we don't want to leave a weak monster in attack. So here we can add any illusion monster, so we go ahead and we grab the Deer Bells. Now, reason why I grab the Deer Bells is because I know that I can fuse off and grab a Kotal using the Gazelle effect. But I want that Deer Bells engraved as soon as possible so that I can revive it as quick as possible. So we go ahead and we fuse off the Gazelle and that Deer Bells in hand. So the Deer Bells is now in the grave, so that's in rotation. and we go chain 1 Gazelle to grab us that Kotal, and chain 2 Big Wing Bertho to Foolish the Tau. Now we Foolish in Tau because then Tau can reborn an illusion monster in defense mode at the small cost of locking our graveyard out of special summoning other than illusion monsters, and for our deck that's not really an issue. Most of our special summoning from the graveyard tends to actually happen on our opponent's turn, so yeah, we're good with this price. So we grab the Kotal, and then here we can discard the Kotal, which we do in just a moment, once the Towel triggers to spec back the Deer Bells, and we go ahead and we activate that Chimera Fusion to add it back to hand as well. Then here what we end up doing is we ditch the Towel for cost to add the Big Wing Berthomet to hand, which then allows us to keep comboing. Now I'm feeling pretty confident because that's summon number 5 already, so yeah, and the chances of him having Nibiru, main deck in Nibiru in this deck, I thought was pretty slim. And before we go ahead and fusion lock ourselves, we do overlay for the Lars, just so we have that negate. I did some quick calculations in head and we were not OTKing this turn, so I'd much rather get that Omni negate up and out on the field ready to go. Obviously it isn't only a negate on a face up card, but it's still a negate nonetheless. And here now we go ahead and we fuse off into the other copy of the Berthomet Fusion. Now we don't get the Foolish effect because that is once per turn, but we do get the Big Wing Berthomet effect, which does allow us to special summon back an illusion monster. So we go ahead and we grab back that Deer Bells yet again, but this time in attack mode, whereas Tau put it in defense. So now we can go ahead and punch the chicken with Lars for 2,000 points of damage, and then swing for 25 and 24 direct, doing a total of 6,900 damage. He obviously has one card face down, which is a bit of a bluff, I feel, at this stage. And then he has the 2 cards in hand, and he's going to be top decking. Now, I do have a monster negate, I have a target negate, and we also have the Lars face up negate. So I'm feeling pretty confident that either way we can stop his turn pretty easily, because yeah, like you get I think the only, if he activates Wanted, we chain Lars, negate it. He normal summons whatever he normal summons, we can go ahead and activate Mirror Sword Knight to negate. So all of these things happen, but he goes ahead and just normal summons up Phonics. I go ahead and Lars it because I want to get the Berthomet in rotation. So then when I do banish the Mirror Sword Knight for cost, I can go ahead and spec it back by banishing the Bertho. But here now he activates Triple Tactics, which was set last turn, so absolutely fine to play under Deer Bells, and he just steals the Deer Bells. So therefore, yeah, he can now have free access to his spell cards for this turn. It's a shame I don't have another card in my hand to discard, because I could have super polyed off the Deer Bells and the Berthomet into the 3100. So he wants to have a look at my graveyard, see if a fire type in there, I believe is what he's looking for, because he could go into heater and then start comboing off from there, or at least attempting to. Unfortunately for him though, I haven't ashed, I haven't got any fire types. The only fire type I've got is Lars, which is still on the field at this point. So he goes ahead and links Phonics off into the Relinquished Anima, and then he goes ahead here and links 2 into the SP to try and banish a monster, because it targets. So Kotal will do its thing, banish itself to negate and destroy, which will then trigger SP's other effect, which will then trigger the Mirror Sword Knight to negate that effect. So therefore I negate only one effect with the Mirror Sword, so therefore Kotal can still negate and destroy, and Aaron goes ahead and scoops it up there, and we move to game 2. Okay, so what you just saw there was we jumped straight into straight into round 1 against Aaron on Fire King Snake Eyes. You just saw game 1 of that round. We took that game 2-0. Second game was a bit longer, but at the same point there was no real consistency gameplay there at all on both sides. Aaron, bless him, didn't open optimally either game. Game 1, as you saw, I was able to control that board presence very easy from the get-go, based on the cards that Aaron drew. And then game 2 was a similar situation. I think like 2 or 3 turns passed when neither of us was able to get a monster to stick on the field, and it got put into a simplified game state very, very quickly. And I was able to draw one of my 1-card starters before he was able to draw his. As Aaron did say after the game, though, he is only on 2 bonfire currently. I don't know how difference that third would have made, but who knows? Maybe it would have made that a little bit more consistent, because he would have taken something out of the deck for that, which then could have actually changed his whole lineups and made his deck a little bit more consistent. But either way, it was a great game. It was the first game I've had in over a month at Geek Retreat, due to just not being able to make it. So it was fantastic to play against somebody like Aaron on my return. So we move into round 2 of the Sneak Peek Winner Mat event with a win under our belt, and we get paired up against another MPEC boy. We get paired up against Wally. He's on his Kashtira deck, which he has won multiple tournaments with now. So I knew I was in for an uphill battle, not only because I'm against Wally, who is one of our top players, arguably ends in the top half of our table every time without fail, but also because our deck cannot play under Shifter. So what you're going to see here now is game 1, and then we will go over what happened in the other games after the fact. So I hope you enjoy game 1, and let's hope we don't get shifted. Okay, so here we are in round 2, and we are up against Wally, a fellow man from the MPEC team, and he goes ahead and throws that shifter right at me. Now, as you can see, I do have the call by in hand, but unfortunately, we're going second, so we are playing under shifter. He goes ahead and specs out that unicorn, Kashtira unicorn, so I do apologise. And my one form of interruption of Effect Railer is now absolutely useless, because I cannot send it to the grave. So, yeah, pop off king, let's see what board you can make. So he goes ahead, he searches the spell card, which allows him to target a Kashtira monster and spec one of a different attribute. So he goes ahead, specs the Fenrir, and then here he activates the Fenrir to add a Kashtira monster. So, yeah, our deck does not play well under Shifter at all. So it's going to be interesting to see what it is we can actually do. Here he decides to go ahead and overlays into a Shangri-La, if I'm pronouncing that even remotely close, so he can start zone locking me, which is always fun. He goes ahead, activates Birth, summons the Tillerman one, which if he sends a Kashtira monster to grave for cost, it becomes level 7 and manages the top 3 cards of my deck face down, which then allows Shangri-La to lock one of my zones. Funny enough, the top card on my deck was Super Poly, and before this game, me and Wally were talking, and I said to him, I think I've only ever beat Kashtira once, and that's when I drew the Super Poly and sucked up your entire board into one of my Super Poly monsters, and as such, we yeah, we was able to take that win. So it was quite funny that the next card would have been the Super Poly. And then here comes the unicorn spec back. So I'm just checking, is it just any time a monster's banished face down, or if it is when his effects banish him, but it's any time. So if I go ahead and activate Pot of Prosperity, that will lock another zone. So he passes priority, passes turn here, and then he activates his trap card. So basically, if I activate a spell, he can banish something. If I activate a trap, he can banish something. If I activate a monster effect, he can banish something. So either way, stuff's getting banished and zones are getting knocked, which is all good. So I don't really know what to do. I am playing under Shifter, which just hurts. Shifter really hurts. my deck. I need my things to go in grave. I need the grave effects to keep me going. And he goes ahead and specs out Ogre here. I can't remember how he spec'd out Ogre. But either way, Ogre's now on the field. So, here we go. So, looking at my hand, and going first, this would have been an absolutely broken hand, because I would have just called by the shifter and popped off. Going second, though, it's rough. So we activate the patchwork. I think Wally's actually used all his cards in hand, so he has 0 cards in hand. So at least it's just a case of, any form of interruption is known, as little as that might help or not help. But yeah, at least it's all known. So here now, thankfully Nightmare Apprentice, when you discard a card, it's just a discard, not discard to grave. So therefore I can actually just pitch the Effect Veiler because it's pointless, and spec out the Apprentice. So the Apprentice will trigger here to add an illusion monster from deck to hand. He did have 1 card left, which was the Ash, and because a monster effect was activated, he can now banish a monster from my extra deck face down. So I think he banishes the Chimera, because I only run 1 Chimera in this current build. Yep, so there goes the Chimera face down, which then of course locks another zone. Losing the Chimera as well obviously hurts, but it's not the end of the world, especially while I'm trying to play under shifter. It wouldn't really be my go-to thing with this current board state. So, as much as it sucks, it's workable. So I'm having a good think about what I want to do here. I normal summon the Edge Imp, which is, some people might say is a bit silly, but my plan here was Chaos Angel, and stupidly, I summoned the wrong monster. I meant to summon the Mirror Sword Knight, so I had Dark and Light. However, I only get the Dark effect because I summoned the wrong monster. Got a bit flustered, trying my best to play on the shifter, and I had to think about what card I wanted to banish, and I forgot about Shangri-La's protection effect, or otherwise I would have just selected that. And I just looked at my hand like, shit, I just summoned the wrong monster. Don't know what's going on here. I think he gets to banish a card from, or something from a deck gets banished. Oh no, we get to excavate top 5. 1 gets banished and the rest go back on top of the deck in the same order. So I know my next card is an Ash Blossom. And there goes the third spell and trap zones. So yay. I decided there's not really much else I could do. I decided just to punch the Shangri-La. He detaches to protect, which, like I said, I completely forgot about that, or otherwise I would have banished that instead of the trap card. And I decided to set the cool by. Reason why is because if he attempted to send something for cost or sinks in the grave and he tries bringing it back, I can do that. But also, I'm a fusion deck, so I need a space in the back row. So if he manages to start banishing stuff again, at least then I've got a zone open, because if nothing else on my turn, I can just call by the shifter in the grave and then have a spell and trap zone available. But here is the Scareclaw one, which can attack and defense, and it negates the effects of any monster it battles. So, bit of a pain one. That I do always have difficulties with the the Scareclaw. So, it is looking very much like I am in deep trouble. He goes ahead and overlays again. This time, I believe he overlays for Big Eye here. Yeah, just takes the Chaos Angel and just punches me for game. So, Yeah, wasn't the best showing. I certainly misplayed by not going into the mirror sword for the light and dark, but that's certainly the end of round one. And game one. Hopefully, we can pull it back in the other games. Well, we got shifted. So, game one, as you saw there, was a very dominating game by Wally. We just weren't able to get a foothold into that game, and the just generally, but it was a good game back and forth. Well, not back and forth, but the banter between us. It's always fun playing against David and Wally. So it was a really good game. Moving into game two, I opted to go first. I wanted to try and establish my board and get my interruptions up. And funny enough, the Super Poly came in to play game two, sucking up two of Wally's fire psychic monsters into a Garura, which then, unfortunately for him, wasn't able to re-establish his board from that fact, and then we took that game too. Moving into game three, Wally decided to go first and didn't have shifter, and unfortunately didn't open too optimally. We, however, opened absolutely cracked and was able to build a board very quickly, push through the very little interaction that Wally did have, and was able to take that game. Game three just wasn't there for Wally, unfortunately, on that occasion. So we took that game 2-1. I was very shocked, very happy, but very shocked that not only did I beat Wally, I beat Cashdera, which is a deck we struggle against, but we're also 2 rounds out of 5 into a sneak peek winner mat, and we're undefeated. Like, unbelievable. Then from there, we went into game 3. We got paired up against Adam. I've mentioned Adam quite a few times on the channel. Again, arguably one of our top players, not only top half of the table, normally tops locals, gets one of those top 3 positions most weeks. And he was on a deck I am not familiar with, which is Sprite. And I know it's been out for a while and it's a deck I should be familiar with, but I'm not. When it came out, everyone at our locals was either playing Tillerments or something to beat Tillerment. So we didn't get a lot of Sprite players. I think we only had one at the time, and I never got paired against them, so I've never played against it. When I get paired against it on Mastodon, I don't really pay attention. So I knew roughly what they did. Like, I knew Blue Search, I knew Carrot was a spell trap negate, I knew one was a monster negate. I think it was red, I think. Starter can spec one. So I had a rough idea what it could do, but it was the additional level 2 combo stuff that you put in there with it, which I just was not expecting. He took game 1 pretty convincingly. He managed to cycle Toad 3 times in one turn, which was it was a pain, not gonna lie to you, but I was able to bait it out every time and still establish a board, so I was quite pleased with that in myself. So I was like, I was able to play around the Omni Negate 3 times just to then get clapped up on like the clapback. So I was like, okay, cool. So here what you can see now is footage of game 2. And just to quickly go back, sorry, at this moment in time during the day, I've not won a single dice roll. I've lost every dice roll of all 3 games. But here is game 2 of round 3. So I hope you enjoy that, and I'll be back with you after the game. Okay, so here we are in round 3, and this is game 2. So I'm currently 1 game down here. I'm against Adam, and well, one of the first Adams I played today. He's arguably one of our top players along with a few others. So I knew this game weren't going to be easy. Definitely somebody who I do go to for deck advice as well. So I definitely know this wasn't going to be easy. He drop the squid thing, so he draws a card every time we summon from hand. We summon the Mirror Sword, so he gets the draw 1. And we activate the Mirror Sword. We decide to fusion lock ourselves early, just based on what else we've got in the hand. And the Birthmark's good to resolve, so that's always good news. So we go ahead and we add the Gazelle, and we add the Chimera Fusion. So, this point in the day as well, we are both XO. This is round 3, and we are currently both XO. So, and there is the break after this one. There's 5 rounds, so this is the halfway point, just to see what we can do. So, I honestly can't remember what we was talking about here. I think we was talking about the Birthmark adding both. Maybe on resolution, he goes ahead and activates Droll. So, cool. We're now Drolled. Understandable. We go ahead, we throw down the Poly. We fuse the Gazelle and the Birthmark. So, the Gazelle won't get to activate here, sadly. However, I do decide to go for the Foolish based on the hand. If I just normal summon... Oh no, go for the hand rip. Okay, I feel like that's a mistake looking back on this one. I feel like the Foolish would have been better, because yes, the big wing targets the Mirror Sword and adds that. Oh, we go for the we go for both. Okay, ignore me. We get the hand rip anyway. So we've got the hand rip for free. I'm being stupid. Ignore my original comment. This is the best one because we get the hand rip as well as the Foolish anyway. And then the Chimera is actually engrave. So during the standby phase, we can banish the Chimera to spec out the barrier statue. So definitely the better way. So yeah, in the moment, much more clearer minded on what I wanted to do than what my brain's telling me now. So we get that hand rip, and obviously he replenished 1 card in the hand, but we still, instead of starting on a turn with 6 cards, he's starting the turn with 4. With starting with the Mirror Sword negate, we can get the Abyss statue out during the standby phase, and we have the Imperm on the field as well as the Effect Raider in hand. So we're essentially sitting on 3 monster negates, as well as stopping him from special summoning non-dark monsters. But he does chain Sprite Starter, I believe that's what that's called, to this, to spec out blue, and then this resolves, and then blue's effect to search. Now, I let the blue effect through. I have no idea why I let it through. I'm literally sitting on 3 monster negates, and I'm just like, yeah, cool, go for it. Search your card. I guess in my mind at the time, I was like, doesn't matter what he searches, he can't spec it. But he can still normal summon, so that's a really rookie move on my part. That was an error, because I feel this gives him the extenders that maybe he didn't need to have. Like there, he just normal summoned the carrot, and then you can go ahead and spec the Jet, because Jet is a dark. We go ahead and chuck the Effect Raider down to negate the Jet. But you know what I mean? Like, he's got an extra body on the field that he shouldn't have had if I actually played correctly. Here he overlays into something. I don't remember what this thing's called, but it's got some weird effects. So he's explaining what the effects do. He goes ahead, detaches to pop, I believe. So we go ahead, flip the Imperm to negate. He goes ahead and activates the carrot to negate the Imperm. I decide to let it through, and then it banishes the statue to the end turn. So the statue comes back during the end phase. So now he goes ahead and activates. I'm so sorry, I cannot see what that spell card is. I believe it's the Fiendsmith. Yeah, it's the Fiendsmith. Is it Tact? To add Engraver. He pitches the Nimble, which then triggers to spec up 2 more Nimbles. Which then I believe he overlays here. Like, maybe I should have Mirror Sword Knighted that carrot to negate, but then at the same point the imperm would have actually fizzled out because the target had left the field. But if I Mirror Sword Knighted the monster instead of impermed, that would have made a whole lot of difference. Because then my monster wouldn't be banished, you wouldn't have been able to of Spectre the Nimbles, and we then wouldn't have a gigantic sprite thing on the field to contend with. So definitely a misplay there. I used the wrong interruption. I should have used the Mirror Sword Knight at that point, not the imperm. And also, I'll need to watch it back, but did he actually play the tract in the... No, he didn't play it in the imperm column, that way. I'm being stupid. I thought maybe play the tract in the imperm column. Right, so I made a mistake there. He goes ahead here and he links these two off into Sprint. Sprint effect allows him to foolish a sprite card. I'm out of interruption. Sorry, not a sprite, a level 2. So he foolishes the angler, which allows him to spec his third beaver. And then he goes ahead and overlays again into a gigantic sprite because I was able to stop the first one. Whereas this time now he is at 3200 and just punches my monster. I wasn't aware of the ability that it gains based on having a link monster as material. But yeah, we learned something new. We did lose game 1. Like I said, he got this mosquito thing out, which could do a whole bunch of burn damage and burn me loads and took the game that way. During the end phase, we activate the Berthomet to spec out the Mirror Sword, which then we activate Tribute in the Mirror Sword to spec out Big Wing Berthomet to fusion lock ourselves, but we are on our opponent's turn. As such, not really an issue being fusion locked. So then Big Wing effect will go through, grabbing us the Gazelle and our third and final Chimera fusion. This is important because I do actually dig in the deck later looking for a Chimera fusion, but they are all on the field or in hand. So I do an illegal play. For turn, we go ahead and draw Cornfield Coatle, which is always nice. Get that in rotation, get rid of that target. Get rid of those pesky effects that can target. We search for a Mirror Sword, I believe. Yeah, so we grab another Mirror Sword here. I normal summon the Gazelle. I believe this is where I go digging for that Chimera fusion, forgetting that the other two are on the field. So this is the illegal activation. So normal summoning the Mirror Sword would have actually been better for us if we were going to normal summon it all at this stage. I do apologise to my opponent. Obviously that is a minor warning because obviously, but I'm really confused at this point because I'm like, where is it? And it's like, oh, there it is. Cool. Yeah, both of my face down cards are the Chimera fusions. So I'll go ahead and reactivate the Chimera fusion, which now my opponent knows is a Chimera fusion. We've already gone through one of the effects, so I'm in an hour which one to go into, but I'll go ahead and send the Mirror Sword from hand just to get that back in grave, and we go ahead and get out the Berthomet fusion. So the Berthomet fusion here will trigger foolishing a monster, and Gazelle will trigger as well, adding a monster to hand. So we send the Deer Bells and we add, I believe we add the Apprentice. There we go. So, like I say, it's a bit tricky. We go ahead and add back the Chimera fusion. He's got a 3200 monster on the field, so it's trying to play around that, but at the same point, it's also having a good think about what it is I can do. I ditch the Chimera fusion to spec the Apprentice, and then the Apprentice will trigger to add us a Kotal, just because I am running out of targets of searching. So we go ahead and grab a Kotal just because we've got 2 Mirror Swords in grave along with the Kotal. Now we go ahead, activate the Chimera Fusion, fusing the Big Wing Berthomet, the Kotal in Hand, and the Apprentice. Here I was kind of like, oh, I feel like I've made a mistake, because I believe I go Guardian Chimera here, and then it's only when I put Chimera on the field I realise, shit, I don't get the pop effect because he doesn't have 2 targets. But Big Wing does trigger, and obviously I do still get a draw from the Guardian Chimera. I draw an Ash, which is always nice for follow-up, because my monster is still bigger than his by 100, and then we can punch for 25 and 24. Clear the field. He's got 1 card in hand. We've got an Ash Blossom. So, yeah, I'm not feeling too bad. I could overlay, but what's the point? What's the point of getting out the Typhon? I suppose I could have bounced the Gigantic and done a bit more damage, because then it would have been 29, 25, 24, which is 6, 9, 7, 8, which would have left him on 200. However, this left him on, I believe, 800. So, all in all, the difference there isn't too dramatic. I'm having a good think about what I want to do here, and I decided to link off the Guardian Chimera into the Silhouette Rabbit. I thought the 3300 body would be good, but then I thought the special summon negate would be better. So we go ahead and we set the Angel statue, which is what Rabbit does, just because obviously his deck special summons a lot. So having that special summon negate is good, because I knew the only card he had in hand at that point was Engraver. So if he was going to trigger anything engraved to try and special summon, I've got the Angel to negate. So he goes ahead, normal summons his Swamp Frog effect. Obviously my barrier does come back during the end phase, so we just chuck that back on the field. I do have the Mirror Sword, but I decided to let the Swamp Frog search go through. Again, not realising I'm sitting on Ash in hand, so I could have just Ashed that. But, oh well. He grabs his Ice Barrier monster, sends the Ice Barrier monster to grab the spell card. He can't activate the spell to special summon it because of the barrier statue, so all he can do here is punch into the barrier statue. Which is 1,000 defense, and Swamp Frog's 1,000 attack, and pass. So here now as well, I'm just like, cool, what do we do? I know that back row is the Ice Barrier card, because obviously that's what he added, and the other card in hand is Engraver, but I decide I want to get this Guardian Chimera effect off properly, so let's do this. So I link 2 in hand, 1 on field, get the Guardian Chimera, pop 1, draw 2, we pop up the back row, we get rid of it, just to get shot of it, then we punch over that frog, and we take game 2, moving into the all-important game 3 of the series to see who is going into the break undefeated. So it was very good, very exciting, and I can't wait for game 3. Okay, so there you got to see that I actually took a game. I took game 2 against Adam. There was some very clear misplays on my side, going into that first Guardian Chimera without getting the pop effect. I would have been much better going into the Illusionist Beast and actually doing some serious damage from that point. However, we live and learn. That's why we record these games. That's why we watch them back. That's why I make these videos, not only so I can try and build something, but just so I can put out there the Chimera and White Forest videos. We don't need these Fiendsmith engines and whatnot. As you saw there, he was on Fiendsmith as well. So it's not just Sprite, it's Sprite Fiendsmith, and we took a game, and so I was very, very happy with that. Now, unfortunately, game 2 took a while, as you saw. Game 3, we didn't have a lot of time. I think we had about 7 minutes. Time we shuffled, sided, cut, and everything else. We had about 5 minutes. So we both knew this could come down to time. he went first. Wasn't able to establish that big of a board, which gave me some real hope. However, I wasn't able to establish much from one either. I was able to poke and punch for a little bit of damage, and he activated Sprite Starter, I believe, and paid 1100. So at this point, I was about 1600 life points ahead. And then I had to pass back. There's nothing else I could do. I'm not going to waste time. I hate it when people start slowing down a little bit in game 3. I don't want to win like that. So I passed back. He manages to combo off a little bit, but I managed to stop him. But not before he's able to get a level 2 tuner out, which is normally ran in Red Dragon Archfiend. It's one of the Archfiend things, which looks like it has flying discs. And basically, you can target a monster on the field and you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. He had a monster on the field which had around 3,000 Dragon Exploit, had 3,200 attack. So that's what he gained, and put himself about 900 life points higher than what I was currently on. And then when he passed the time back to me, time was called in my draw phase, so I wasn't able to do anything. I don't play any time burn cards, and even if I did, I don't think it would have been enough. I think he would have still been ahead on life points. It sucks to lose in time, but at the end of the day, the way I saw it is I took one of our better players to time, and it was close. Like, our life points were very close, so I cannot be mad at that result. I'm walking away on X1 after round 3, so I'm doing better than what I already intended. And just the fact I took a game and then took into time, I was buzzing. Honestly, I was so happy. We went for a break at that point, and when we came back, we went up against Rob. I've never played against Rob before. I have no idea what Rob was on. Where I've been showing you just one game, I'm actually going to show you game 1 and game 2 of me versus Rob, because we're both playing decks that can perfectly counter each other due to having a built-in floodgate. So I'm not going to say more than that. I want you to see the gameplay footage and then we'll go over it. So here is game 1 and then game 2 of me versus Rob. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so we're going into round 4 now. So we've just had a little bit of a break, and my opponent is 2 wins, 1 draw. I'm 2 wins, 1 loss at this stage. So we go ahead, we win the dice roll. The first dice roll we won today. I normal summon Mirror Sword. He is still not overly knowledgeable on the Chimera cards, so I'm going to explain everything in full detail for him. So the Mirror Sword allows us to special summon a monster that mentions Chimera Fusion from the deck. So we go ahead and special summon out the Big Wing Baphomet. On summon or special summon allows us to add the level 4 Beast and the Chimera Fusion. It's and/or, so you can either add one or the other, or in this case, both. So we add the Gazelle and we add the Chimera Fusion. Gazelle does the same thing, but one or the other. So it's, yeah, same effect, just a little bit weaker for the normal summon, non-tribute, which I explain. So he goes ahead, tracks down the Droll, and again, we faced the Droll in the last round, so it kind of hurts. And we've got all 3 copies of Chimera Fusion though, so I'm not too mad because I know I can do some form of shenanigans with, you know, just flourishing cards, special summoning stuff back. So we go ahead, we fuse off the Baphomet and the Gazelle. Here we decide to go into that Chimera, the King of Mythical Beasts, just to get that hand rip going as well, just to take our opponent from 4 cards in hand down to 3 at the end of the turn, and we get to spec back that Mirror Sword Knight. So we decide, there is no decision. We can only special summon back the Mirror Sword Knight. It's the only valuable target in the graveyard at this stage. So we spec back the Mirror Sword, and then we add back the Chimera Fusion. So we're just explaining fully what the fusion monster does for our opponent, just so they're aware, and we add back the Chimera Fusion. Now from here, we decide to throw that down and fuse off the 2 on field into the Baphomet Fusion monster. So, a bit weird how both of them have the name Baphomet. You would have thought they would have called this one something slightly different. It's like naming the Chimera Gazelle instead. You know what I mean? Like, but either way, I'm rambling about something that's not important to this game. But the Berthmut now foolishes a Beast Fiend or Illusion. I decided to go ahead and foolish the Diabells because I side the barrier statue. So we send the Diabells, which we can spec back by getting the by banishing the Chimera Engrave. So our opponent will have a difficult time with spell cards. At this stage, I'm still not really sure what our opponent's on. This is the first time I've ever played Rob as well, so it was like really nice to actually have a game against him. We've spoke a lot, we've done a few trades in the past, and he's a really cool guy, so it'd be nice to know. And we you know, it's nice to have a game. So we do 1 to 4 with 5/6 reroll. We hit the 3, and there that reveals to us it is Magispector Pendulums, baby. Diabells is going to run wild on Magispector. As you know, I've deck tested against Magispector so much because of Isaac, so I know exactly where the choke points are in this deck. So during his draw phase, we activate that Chimera, spec back the Diabells, and now he has to set spell cards before he can play them, and he sees the writing on the wall, scoops it up, and we move to game 2. Okay, so here we are in game 2 against Rob. This is still round 4, game 2. And we know Magispector does have access to that secret village of the spellcaster if we cannot stop him in the right place. So this is going to be interesting. He now knows that my Floodgate can stop his deck. I know his Floodgate can stop mine. So he goes ahead and normal summons the Bombagoo. We throw the Ash, which should have been enough to stop it. However, he had the out. He had the cross out. Called Ash Blossom, of course. So Ash is now negated to the end of the turn, allowing Bombagoo to resolve. Now, I don't know the Hedgehog's name, unfortunately, but I do know it is the Hedgehog. That allows him to special summon if he controls a Magispector or Draco Slayer monster. So here we go, we get the special summon, and then we get the link straight off the bat. I have 0 other interruptions, which means as long as he doesn't mess up the combo, he's ending on Secret Village, and we are in trouble. So he goes into the link to Nui, sends 2, he does send the Draco Slayer, so straight away I know that Secret Village is coming. And I believe he sends the little green frog. The frog, which allows him to set a spell or trap. So I know he can either bounce a monster, banish a monster, negate a summon, or an activate effect, basically Solemn Strike, but and then Archetype one, which is searchable, which is fantastic for him. So he goes ahead, places his scales down, does the old pendulum summon swing. There we have it, chain 1, chain 2. So here he sets the counter trap card, which negates a summon or a monster effect, which just fucks us over that little bit more and adds that Secret Village of the spellcaster. So we are in trouble. It is that simple. We need spell cards. We are a fusion based deck. Without the spell cards, I'm not really sure what else we can do. But we're going to play it out. I want to push, because at the end of the day, the illusions can't be destroyed by battle. So you have to remember this. So it's not just a case, can he just stop us? It could be a case of I could floodgate him till I draw the out, and by floodgate him I mean put undestructible monsters on the field. So there's the Secret Village. And you'll see here as well, I misplay terribly, because this is, of course, when he tributes a monster, or when a monster's tributed, he can detach to search or spec, I can't remember exactly, but I have Ash Blossom in the hand. Ash is now live, it's now a new turn. So what I just drew for turn is useless. 2 cards in hand are dead, so I just normal summon the Mirror Sword. And he chooses not to activate, which is good with us because that's pretty much all we can do. Technically, I could have gone into Typhon. However, at that point, he would have just flipped over his trap, negated the summon, and then I'd be left with nothing. So I chucked down the face down, and we passed down. So my out in my head here is Magician's Apprentice to go into Chaos Angel, banish the Secret Village. That is the out I am thinking, which unfortunately does require us to have 1 out of 3 chance. Of course, he does have the counter trap. He decides to punch, does a little bit of damage, but because obviously it's an illusion monster, can't be destroyed by battle, but still I do take a little bit of damage. Which is interesting why I didn't punch Nui for the 400 damage. I should have. So I kind of missed an opportunity there to get some damage on board. But, oh well. We draw the Deer Bells, which is the one of. So it's like, wow, okay. So we decided to set Edge Imp, just because at this point I want deck thinning. I want to be able to deck thin just a little bit. Here I'm thinking about the Typhon, but it's just not worth that risk. I switched the Mirror Sword to defense mode, just to keep my life points safe from the Xyz monster, and we set the Edge Imp. So Rob here, he draws for turn, he's having to think about things, and decides just to punch my face down with Nui, which is his weaker monster. So he actually takes 300 damage here, and then just punches with the Xyz and kills the Edge Imp. So the Edge Imp will resolve here, allowing me to grab Patchwork. I'm fully aware Patchwork is a card I can't activate, but he decides to activate his counter trap here, tribute his Link 2 to negate it, and then here he detaches 1 to search or to spec, and I've got Ash Blossom in hand, but I let it through. If I Ash this, I'm not saying I could have won, but I certainly would have been in a better position, because here we spec Bombaku, the Bombaku effect then goes off, and again I let it go through. What am I thinking here? There's 2 ashable moments to stop him from getting 2 additional bodies. Here I look at my hand, realise I've got Ash, and think, what the fuck? Because that was a misplay and a half. There you go, I just pointed to it for the camera. I should have Ashed the Xyz monster, because now he can just, whoop. I still don't fully get why he activated the trap, I guess to try and trigger the Xyz monster, because adding Patchwork does nothing for me because I can't activate it. However, now I know the counter trap is gone, it does mean that my Typhon is safe to come out as long as the requirements are met. I need him to go into the extra deck twice. So here's the first time he goes ahead beyond the pendulum, activates the effect and pays the 1200 to search. I decide to Ash that. So at least I get something off the Ash. However, if I did it correctly, Beyond the Pendulum should never have been able to touch the field, giving us a much better board state, because now we can Pendulum summon those 2 bodies back, which are essentially 3 bodies because of my misplay. So, you know, we all make mistakes. We've just got to try and lick our wounds, get over it, and move on. Because 2 different levels, Pendulum Summon to zones beyond the Pendulum points 2, can pop 2 cards, and yeah, that for us is basically writing on the wall, because the 2 cards we've got in hand are dead, and yeah, they're building, and again, none of this should have been possible. You got to think, everything that happened here shouldn't have happened. Here's Selene activates, got more than enough spell counters to bring one back in defense mode. So Rob goes ahead, gets back his, I think Bombaku, he brings back it. Oh no, he gets his Kirin back. So yay, even if I get some form of board presence now, Kirin will just bounce it. But like I said, should not have happened. What you should be sitting on here is that 1 Xyz monster, and that is it. But I scoop it up and we take it to game 3. There you saw it. It was Magic Spectre versus Chimera. We won the dice roll, our first dice roll win of the game, and that is what won us the game. We took game 3, which we'll go over shortly, But basically, this is essence of, I suppose, what a lot of people's issue with Yu-Gi-Oh is. This whole game was determined by the dice roll. Whoever won that dice roll was winning. I won the dice roll. Game 1, I set up deer bells. Rob saw the writing on the wall, scooped it up. Game 2, he was able to play through the limited interaction I had, so therefore was able to establish his board with Secret Village of the Spellcaster. Yes, I then misplayed, which, as you saw, which allowed him to establish a much bigger board presence than what he should have. So maybe I could have pulled that back somewhere down the line. But it was a race still to who would have got more extenders at that stage. I was waiting for one card, 1 out of 3 cards, all of my Nightmare Apprentices. And if Rob managed to get any of his extenders out before I found that singular card, even though I run it at 3, the result would have still been the same. So I can't kick myself too much about that misplay. It hurts to watch it back because it was such a stupid misplay. But again, we're here to learn. That's what that is. I'm trying to go from casual to competitive, and just the fact that watching it back and seeing the difference of what the board could have been if I picked that up shows me that I am improving in my knowledge. So even though I've messed up in the moment, the fact that I'm able to reflect on that and see the difference, to me, is a huge step forward. But as you saw, his Floodgate out in my deck, and then game 3, same thing. I was able to full combo, put my Floodgate out of Deer Bells, and I had the negate for his evenly matched that he dropped. Yeah, he dropped an evenly. I had Evolja Lars out, which he detached to. It negates a face-up card, so I negated is evenly matched. And as such, he tried to grind it out. He just couldn't establish a big enough board presence to make it worthwhile, so we took that game. Rob at that point as well was 2 wins and 1 draw, so he was technically undefeated at that point. I was X1, so now we're still X1 going into the last round of the day. So I was absolutely buzzing. I'm ending the day on a positive result regardless. And I get paired against another guy called Adam. He said it's the first time he's been back at locals in God knows how long. So it was great to see somebody new, and you know, he was friendly with the other Adam and with Matt. So therefore I knew he was a cool guy. I knew he was chill because of who he was there with. So I knew either way this was going to be a fun game, and I'm all about that. He wins the dice roll and he goes, this is going to give away what I'm playing. You can go first. So it's like, cool, you're playing Tenpai. It's either Tenpai or Cyber Dragon, and who the hell's playing Cyber Dragon? So, yay, you're playing Tenpai. So I build a board, he nibs me. I'm like, great. I'm about to be OTK'd. However, at this point, I did play through 2 other hand traps. So he's got 2 cards left in hand. He draws for turn. So I also rip a card. So he's only got 3 cards in hand when he draws. So he's got 3 cards now. And he's got his Nibiru. And he passes. And I'm like, you what? Excuse me? And he's like, yeah, I haven't drew any of my starters. Okay, cool. So I start establishing my board again, and he drops a second nib. Oh, for fuck. All right, you're not drawing your starters, but you're drawing your board breakers, so cool. And it was a fat token, absolute huge token. And then his turn, my limited interaction I had was enough to stop his turn dead. And then I managed to go into Guardian Chimera, pop the Nibiru and the other card he had on the field. And between Guardian Chimera and the Nib token was enough to take game 1. Now, this is where the first mistake comes. And it's not from my side. And me and Adam spoke about it afterwards. He sided for going first, even though he is an OTK deck, because he is so used to winning game 1, which I don't blame him, because Tenpai normally wins game 1. He was just on autopilot at that point in the 5th round and decided all his go first cards. And then I looked at him and went, cool, are you going first or second? And he went, oh yeah, it's on me. It was like, I guess I'm going first. I was like, okay, cool. And annoyingly, his go first cards was enough to stop me. He debarried me, solemn warning, or some, yeah, I think it was warning or judgment, one of them, and just absolutely shut me down from that sort of angle. Was able to take the game in under 4 minutes, so I was like, cool. So I'm there siding, I'm having a look at my side deck, seeing what I could do, and I look up, and this is where mistake number 2 comes from. He hasn't touched his side deck, so I know he's got all of his go first cards still in his deck. He hasn't touched it, he hasn't picked it up, he hasn't looked, he hasn't changed a single card from round 2 to, from game 2 to game 3. So I instantly side in all of my go second cards. I side in my Dark Ruler No Mores, my Regekis, I drop all my hand traps, and I'm thinking, like, no, so I sided all my go first cards, because I know he's got all of his go first cards in there still. And I say to him, cool, I'll go first. And the look on his face was like, what? Because he's so used to people who are on 10 play being forced to go first. But I knew he had all of his go first cards in his deck. So why am I going to go, you go first? This is my chance. Yeah, it worked. He bricked. He didn't have anything. So I went first. I set up my board. I stayed with under 5 summons because like hell was I getting nibbed again. I ended on the Illusion Beast with the Chimera Engrave, with the Diabells on the field, and a set Super Poly. So the Diabells was engraved with the original Chimera. Just during his standby phase, I banished the Chimera, spec back the Diabells. You have to set your spell cards. He normal summons, is it Tundra, the red dragon, which specs out the green dragon. On summon, I flip over that Super Poly, I suck them both up into a Garura, and he passes with a complete open field. I've got the Illusion Beast, I've got Garura, and I have Diabells. Over 8k damage, because when Garura inflicts battle damage, it's doubled, so it attacks for 3k, and I take game 3, meaning that we won round 5, 2-1, after losing that dice roll as well. So we went 4-1 on our return. Not only was it our return, it was our first week of going from casual to competitive for this new season, and also it was a sneak peek winner map where people were busting out like their ironed out deck list. Like no one was trying a fancy tech or, oh, it's only a local, so I might try this instead. People were bringing their actual lists, and some games we got lucky. I'm not going to sit here and say it was all me, because it wasn't. Game 2 against Wally with that Super Poly was lucky. My opponent not touching their sideboard in round 5 for me was lucky. So we pulled it. We went 4-1. It got us 3rd, so we got the bronze medal. We topped a winner mat event. Unfortunately, we didn't win the mat, but still, top 4 is topping an event. So we topped the event on our first week back. So I honestly don't think that could have gone any better. I'm going to film the deck profile with possibly a tutorial or some test hands or something. So keep your eyes open for that. But other than that, I hope you really enjoyed this week's video and the first episode of Casual to Competitive. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.